This.
That's my CV.
We have got to start with Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm sorry that I'm smiling about this. It's just getting so ridiculous. It feels like the evil people are now laughing in our face. And there's so much that has happened. And I feel like a lot of it that happened way back in 2007 and 2008 isn't really known to the wider public because we went through this phase where the left and the right, we hate each other so much, way too much to appreciate the bigger picture that was happening in the middle. So I'm going to slow everything down for you so you can truly appreciate how absurd this story is. First and foremost, and this is my favorite part of the Jeffrey Epstein story, is that he is a man who became a billionaire. And the strangest part about his billionaire status is that nobody knows how he became a billionaire. Yeah, they can't tell us that. That's my favorite part of the whole thing is just like Chris, my editor, mentioned earlier, you don't pay 8 cents of tax money. And they'll be like, right here, my friends. You shorted the government 8 cents. But Jeffrey Epstein, we don't know where he got his billions of dollars.
I always wondered where his money came from. Like, dude had enough bread to buy an island, but don't nobody
Right.
know where his money came from? Come on now.
Right. Right.
The real story actually begins with a man named Donald Barr. Okay, Donald Barr. And if you're listening to that right now and thinking, Candace, that surname sounds strangely familiar to you, well, it is because he is, in fact, Bill Barr's father. Bill Barr, who worked for the CIA and then became the U.S. Attorney General under George H.W. Bush, and then again under Donald Trump's first term. Yeah, that Bill Barr. His dad was Donald Barr. And his dad was actually a pretty interesting character, I got to tell you, because he published this book in 1973, a science fiction book. I want to be clear, it's fiction. And it was entitled Space Relations. And this totally fiction book told the story about a planet that is ruled by oligarchs who engage in child sex slavery. Wow, that is really weird. Per Wikipedia, they write, quote, it has been noted that the plot of the novel anticipates the crimes of Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. And even more interesting, by the way, is that this planet that is engaging in this child sex trafficking is known as the Kossars. Let me spell that for you. Kossar, not to be confused with Khazars. But I did decide to look into the word Kossar, Kossar, and it does, it actually is a surname from Eastern European Slavic area. But don't let you get caught up here, okay? Anyways, in this intergalactic plot, there is this group of people who are political extremists, and they are ruled by oligarchs. And they settle this colony in the middle of nowhere because they're political extremists. And they're actually, it says on Wikipedia, they are bored because they just have so much power, such absolute power. They never get in trouble for anything. They can do whatever they want, these Kossars. And they're bored with their power. And they have an ambassador that's helping them to be welcomed back into the wider empire, because the wider empire is actually not down with their slave-owning society. They don't allow them to kidnap human beings and to trade them. That's so strange, right? Very interesting story that Barr was. It's a totally fictional story that he was telling. Vice actually read the book, a journalist named Becky Ferreira, and she describes the novel as highly unsettling due to its depiction of rape of enslaved people, particularly teenage girls, and other coercive sex acts. The sex acts described are performed, quote, for the dual purposes of entertainment and controlled procreation. And she views the novel as sexualizing minors and fetishizing rape. That seems really weird. But Daddy Barr, wrote this book. I got to tell you something else about him because it's quite interesting, because it does end up being a lot of what Jeffrey Epstein was accused of and was taking place, was actually doing. At the time that his book was published, even more interestingly, Donnie Barr was the headmaster of a school. Wow, could you imagine sending your kid to the school and then this guy publishes this book about child sex exploitation? Anyways, he was the headmaster of a school called the Dalton School in New York. And while he was the headmaster, a young Jeffrey Epstein was selected to become a math teacher at this school. Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, was just 21 at the time. Donnie Barr's the headmaster. Jeffrey Epstein becomes a math teacher. And I got to tell you why that's weird. First and foremost, because Jeffrey Epstein only had a high school degree. He didn't have any teaching certifications. He had dropped out of this mathematics program at NYU. Yet under Donald Barr's stewardship, while he's writing this book on the side, Jeffrey Epstein is plucked from obscurity to teach at one of the most prestigious schools in Manhattan. So prestigious, by the way, that today...
Mom, Dad, let me give you a ride home. Yours, sir? Is this yours?
Wow.
And
I
so, of
hate
course, my agent
commercials.
doesn't tell me.
Interesting.
Okay, tuition is $65,000 per year. By the way, I should tell you, Barr himself was a bit controversial. He actually made several unconventional hires at this school during his tenure. And soon after Jeffrey was hired as a teacher, he had to resign amid some controversy. I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole for you, but yeah, he's an interesting character. And you are probably not going to be shocked, but while Epstein was there as a teacher, he was inappropriate with the young female students. He attended parties with them. They spoke about this in the future. Anyways, this unqualified, or at least underqualified, creepy Epstein, who only had a high school diploma, then magically gets a job in finance. Again, zero qualifications. He just somehow became friends with the CEO of Bear Stearns. So in 1976, he joins this firm as a low-level junior assistant to a trader, because again, he doesn't have any qualifications. So he's just assisting, not even the executive assistant, the junior assistant to a trader. But magically, you guys, you're not going to believe me. Just 4 years later, that junior assistant, Jeffrey Epstein, became a partner of the firm. I kid you not. He was made a partner of the firm at the age of 27 with zero financial background. It's giving Emmanuel Macron. It's giving like someone more powerful is just kind of pulling me up through the ranks, and I'm allowed to do that for whatever reason. I don't know. That's just, I'm getting a vibe here. It just sounds very familiar to me. Anyways, just 1 year later, he actually had to leave that firm, even though he just made partner, because he was found guilty of an SEC violation. So partook in a little bit of fraud, very quickly had to resign. But it's all good because then he just started his own consulting firm, because obviously he's super qualified to do that, to start consulting for billionaires and governments, because that's what he did. He establishes like Epstein and Co. at the age of 28, and he begins consulting for governments and extremely wealthy clients. Some of those clients, by the way, who have embezzled funds from people. I'll give you just one example. This guy, Stephen Hoffenberg, hired Epstein in 1987 as a consultant for his Towers Financial Corporation. And while Jeffrey Epstein was consulting for Towers Financial Corporation, they happened to take part in the largest Ponzi scheme ever recorded until Bernie Madoff came some years later.
Jeez.
So what exactly was he consulting? Because she started at the beginning of his career, right?
Right.
And so far, I don't hear of any professional experience or any field wisdom that he may have acquired to solicit as consulting. Have you?
Right. Nope, not at all.
I guess maybe we'll find out later.
He was a math teacher with
Yeah,
no high school, with only a high school degree.
yeah, I'm quite sure that dude didn't hire him for no high school math
Right.
consulting.
Right. Right. Exactly. Hmm.
Oh,
Interesting.
darn. Once again, Epstein's just caught up in a little bit of fraud. But that didn't give the other elites, the other millionaires and billionaires, any pause to continue working with him. No, they just kept hiring this guy. And his most significant consulting relationship began with Leslie Wexner. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, it has been alleged that Epstein made millions because he was managing Leslie Wexner's affairs, millions. Far cry from billions, but Leslie, you might recognize Wexner because he is the owner of many retail stores. Abercrombie and Fitch, Victoria's Secret, I think is probably the one that he's most known for. Lane Bryant, just the L brand in general. Leslie for whatever reason, just felt that Jeffrey Epstein should just be given control of everything, power of attorney, make hiring decisions, firing decisions. He really empowered this Jeffrey Epstein. And for whatever reason, while Epstein was empowered, when executives at the company would come forward and say, hey, this Jeffrey Epstein is kind of a creep. He's posing as a recruiter for Victoria's Secret models, and he's getting access to these women. That was completely ignored. Of course, we know what happens next. Epstein, or during this time frame, he is throwing parties for the elite of the elites. Everyone who wasn't anybody is obviously at a Jeffrey Epstein party. He is the guy to know. His sidekick there, Ghislaine Maxwell, we'll discuss her briefly in a bit. Fast forward to 2006, bad year for our boy Epstein. Bad year. In early 2006, Epstein was actually charged in Florida with multiple counts of molestation and unlawful sexual activity with a minor. Now, to be clear, the FBI was able to confirm for 34 minors, they were able to confirm their stories had been corroborated, that they had been abused by him. That number was then increased to 40 by the time he signed this really interesting plea deal. Okay. Now, to just let you know what he was up to, the details from the investigation included allegations that 12-year-old triplets were flown in from France, interesting place, for Epstein's birthday, and then flown back following the day after they had been sexually abused by him. It was alleged that the young girls were being recruited from Brazil, from South American countries, from former Soviet countries, Europe, and that a certain Jean-Luc Brunel, who ran the modeling agency, which was funded by Epstein, known as MC2, was supplying these young girls to Epstein. Now, Jean-Luc Brunel, again, we're not going to get sidetracked here. He's a French guy. A lot of things that are just going to cross with the Epstein and the French and everything we've uncovered about Emmanuel Macron. But we can't speak to Jean-Luc today because you're not going to believe this, guys. Jean-Luc got arrested, and when he was in a cell, he committed suicide by hanging himself.
Wow.
I know, right?
Coincidence? I think not.
Right.
So that's it.
You knew something was gonna happen to him. I mean, like, come on, you talking about 3 different 12-year-olds, 3 different countries,
Right.
flown to Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what explanation was given to the parents.
It was a model agency.
I get that.
Oh,
But
okay.
what can somebody tell you? What can a model
To make
agency
you
tell you to
right
make you send your 12-year-old daughter out of the country
out
on a
of the.
plane by herself?
But see, that's the same thing I say with these people like the China president. You send your daughter to a whole like my kids went to college, all of them. Like that went away. 3 of them went away to college. And they were right here. You know, the furthest was like Ypsilanti and Livonia, and the other one was like down Wayne State. I couldn't even rest well with them being right here, like 30 minutes away, 15, 20 minutes away, let alone in a whole nother country for any reason without me being there
Right. To see a dude?
to see for a modeling. I wouldn't care what kind of agency it was. My
Yeah, I'm gonna
12
be
year
right there.
old
My child ain't,
daughter,
ain't going nowhere without me. You can't give me one
right?
reason in the world why I'm gonna let my 12-year-old daughter leave the country
12,
to
exactly,
go someplace else for any damn thing. I don't give a fuck what you say it
exactly,
is.
exactly. With some strangers
Right. Somebody who ain't family.
and a
Ain't
male.
close family.
Right.
That's
Not
another
the
dead end. He committed.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say not the school teacher that they see every day, and I have to trust them with them. Not nobody like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't even nobody like that. This is a complete
Right. This is somebody they don't know.
whole
These are strangers.
right, and even people that work for the modeling agency. Okay, you got the guy that own it, but even the workers, you don't know them either.
I mean, you talking about France? They got to know the modeling industry is very foul and corrupt. That's an evil industry.
Man, I wouldn't care if they had the best ratings, reviews, and everything else. I could not send my 12-year-old out the country without me. That
Hell
is
no.
bizarre.
I don't care if it was the Pope,
Exactly.
especially if it's
Exactly.
the Pope.
Right. The pastor, nobody.
Right.
My 12-year-old is not going out of the country on no flight, no boat, no nothing
Mm-mm.
by
I,
themselves.
if
Man.
Bablo was still there, my kids ain't going.
Hmm.
Not without me.
Exactly.
And Bablo is by your house.
Exactly. Man, man, I'm so glad that my mother was a protective mother. I couldn't ride my bike in the neighborhood. So she wasn't and matter of fact, she wasn't letting me go out the country. But matter of fact, my grandmother had took us to a modeling agency. I forgot where it was at, but it was called Barbizon. And she took us out there or whatever, and they was saying what all we would need and giving us the rundown. My mama was like, no. My grandma was like, your mama said you can't because they be doing this and that to girls or whatever. So I'm just glad that she had enough sense to not even let me join a modeling agency, and it was here. But
I know. I remember where it was.
mm-hmm.
I remember
Yep.
exactly where it was.
And that was her worry was how to like, and this was way back when I was a kid, and my mother knew better.
Yeah, my parents did too, thankfully. They didn't let me
Right.
do that 4-H, the boys club and all that.
Right. I wouldn't do Girl Scout, none of that.
Yeah,
Not without me there.
I didn't do Boy Scouts either.
Mm-mm.
And definitely not the YMCA. And I was
Right.
wondering, like, what's wrong with the YMCA?
Right. 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 Right.
It was
Right.
like, you might figure it out in time, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not really the place for children.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they start that, because we used to go to the basketball, we used to go play basketball at YMCA.
Right.
That's all we went for. When
Swimming.
we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
swim, we went to Kimini.
Okay.
But when we wanted to play indoor basketball and stuff like that, we went to
Mm-hmm.
YMCA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad didn't nothing happen.
Right. Right. Serious.
We
Seriously, you can't trust nothing these days.
we was probably the wrong kids to mess with anyway.
Right. 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 Right.
But and maybe that's why didn't nothing happen. But
Right.
it's all them rumors came out decades later. And I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't know all that was going on at the YMCA.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand these mothers. It was talking about Trump and Epstein earlier on the live, and they said that well, the one who mother said, I think the girl's like 14, and said that Epstein and Trump, you know, you know, and so the mother dropped. She so called dropped. I wouldn't drop nothing. And they were like, out of fear. Man, ain't no fear in this world to stop me from either unaliving or prosecuting
But wait,
over your
she waited
kid.
40 years to file it in the first place.
I think
And
she
then
was.
after
I
it's filed, she gonna drop it out of fear.
right,
Okay.
right, right.
That
So
makes a lot of sense,
I
right?
guess the fear went away.
Where's the child?
Right.
Did the child go away?
What you mean?
Where's the
The,
child he supposedly molested? That was the
oh
mother
yeah,
of the
right, right,
child.
right, 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 right.
Where's their child?
And
What
see,
did
when
the
I read,
child say about that?
right, and I haven't heard nothing from the child who's
Yeah,
an
the
adult.
child probably don't even remember.
Right,
I don't remember that. And then she probably say, you were too young. Just go along with it.
right. Another Michael Jackson situation, if you ask me, because how much fear could you have when it come to your kid? You willing to be unalive for your kid. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. You're not worried about that.
And then you want to just file a civil suit
40
to get
years
the
later.
criminal charges. Right,
40 years later.
right,
Come on now.
right. Exactly.
Suicide, sadly. Anyways, oddly, Jeffrey Epstein, despite everything, all of his guilt, he was delivered this amazing deal, caught red handed. And yet, Alexander Acosta, who was then the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, handed him a very light sentence. And the deal was incredible. Okay. First and foremost, the deal granted immunity to any of his potential co-conspirators. So it's like they're investigating the feds. And they're like, okay, this guy's got something to do. Oh, these people, everyone's involved. We're just going to go ahead and grant immunity to those people. The prosecutors also agreed that they would keep the deal that they made with Jeffrey Epstein a secret from his victims so that the victims could not challenge it in court. So they just get a phone call. Found out that Jeffrey Epstein, yeah, we already dealt with that. He actually signed what's known as a non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors. So in the end, he pled guilty to just one count of solicitation of prostitution and one count of procurement of minors for prostitution. And what they gave him was a sentence of 13 months in county jail.
Wow.
And I want to be clear that when he got sentenced this, he was allowed to leave to work at his office and to go for walks. In fact, this part is actually so incredible that I want to read this straight from the Wikipedia page because I can't even do it justice. Now, Wikipedia is just pulling, you can go and fact check these. This is from like the Washington Post, other sources, but it reads, while most convicted sex offenders in Florida are sent to state prison, Epstein was instead housed in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Stockade. That's the sheriff's office, just so you guys are clear. He was just housed in a private wing of the sheriff's office. And according to the sheriff's office, was for 3.5 months allowed to leave the jail on work release for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Or 6 days a week, 2 hours a day. Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to leave. Now, when he was actually in his private cell, the door was open. Epstein's cell door was left unlocked, and he had access to the attorney room where a television was installed for him. I want to make that clear. So he is not only allowed to leave his room whenever he wants, allowed to leave the sheriff's office for 12 hours a day, including one day of the weekend, because it's 6 days a week. They also went through an effort to install a television for him in the attorney's room. Not even the attorneys got that. They installed one for him.
We gotta stop. So he was basically rewarded for his crimes, huh?
I won't exactly say he was rewarded up to this point. And see, I'm trying to keep an open mind, and
Okay,
hear the
let me
story
retract
all the
that.
way out.
Okay, we'll retract that. I'll retract that and hear it out.
But I mean, not, not,
So
no, I'm
far,
not. Don't retract everything because for a you talking about for a SA assault. This is a pretty comfortable
yeah.
sentence that he's serving out
I
here.
mean, it don't even really sound like a sentence to me. You out 6 days a week.
He living better than
Even
they live in a halfway house.
right, even on one of the days, so like normally work release is like you go to work during a week or whatever, you spend a weekend in prison or jail or whatever. But this Joker is out 6 days a week. His cell is open. Like, okay, I'm just
For 12 hours a day.
right, and you are apist,
Yeah, a grapist.
a grapist, yeah. So like nobody else is no worry for nobody else in the prison. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't care if it was a grown woman, a man, a child, it's still the same crime. So nobody else is in danger. He just free to roam.
And he wasn't considered a flight risk. Dude had his own plane. He had his own island.
Right,
Like, and I
right.
don't I don't think I don't think the government on his island is extraditing
Man,
the owner of the island.
right.
Like he wasn't a flight risk.
Mm-mm.
Just, something interesting to note here. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Hey, if you conceal carry and you want to do so comfortably, you're
Damn
probably going to be
commercial.
interested in this, the brand new Nimbus Gray Vanish.
That's before they moved him into their previously unstaffed infirmary. Now, the sheriff's office, if you're wondering what they got, Jeffrey Epstein, right before he turned himself over, he established this not for profit. And from that not for profit, while he was in jail, he paid the sheriff's office $128,000. And that was for extra service that they had provided him during his work release. And what extra services did they provide Jeffrey Epstein during his work release? Well, he wanted to make sure that his office, his off-campus office, was monitored by permit deputies and that their overtime was paid for by Epstein. And he made sure that those deputies that were coming with him to work wore suits and that they checked in his guests at his front desk. So the sheriffs, while he was going to work, came with him. He paid them for overtime. He wanted them to wear suits, and they were responsible for checking in his guests. This is while he's in jail serving his sentence. Okay. Now, later, the sheriff's office would say that the guest logs were destroyed. So we don't know who they were checking in for. Anyways, Epstein served almost 13 months, if we're calling that serving, before he was released in 2009 for a year of probation on house arrest. Now, I want to be clear, house arrest for Jeffrey Epstein looked a little different, okay? While on probation, he was allowed to go on numerous trips because he doesn't have just one house, you guys. So he was allowed to take his corporate jet to his residences in Manhattan, in the US Virgin Islands. He was also, because you can imagine he didn't get a lot of exercise in his houses, he was allowed to go on long shopping trips and walks all around Palm Beach for quote unquote exercise. Actually, I actually do think he probably had a gym in all of his houses. But the point is he wanted fresh air exercise. So he needed these long walks throughout Palm Beach. Epstein was also allowed to use his own driver to drive him between jail and his office and other appointments. Now you're probably thinking around now, why on earth would Alex Acosta agree to that? What's he doing?
I'm wondering,
What? What you wondering?
did he have a tether?
Heck no. Wait, well, she's talking about he served almost 13 months. I'm like, you mean he got served for almost 13 months? The heck?
Yeah, I don't call that exactly serving either. It sounds like his prison sentence just became another appointment on his schedule.
You're right.
Like the police started working for him.
That's what I'm saying. He getting served.
Right. He telling them how to dress and stuff. Like,
Guarding him, driving. He got a driver. He got a pilot, or unless he flew.
man, if this how they do it, I can't wait till I get rich.
No, well, look, no wonder he kept on going. Shoot,
I mean, I guess this is no reason for him to stop, right?
exactly. It's almost like being rewarded for doing bad, getting all these perks.
Yeah, I mean, he basically just sleeping in jail.
Right.
Like, how's that?
Was
That's
he
not
even in
serving.
jail for real? I'm starting to question if he was even in there.
I mean, that's technically like not being in there.
Exactly. Exactly.
He show up in time to eat dinner, Maybe take a shower, watch a movie, go to sleep, get up and go to work. He gone.
Right, right. Well, hold on. Go to work. Go to the gym or wherever he want to go. Get on a
Yeah.
plane. Go
He
visit his
got 12
homes,
hours a day.
on shopping trips. Like, when did he spend inside? Oh, I
When
don't
he
want to
was
go no.
asleep, he was
Right.
that's when he was asleep.
I'm really wondering if he was ever really there.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think like all this time he was allowed to leave,
Right,
it's sounding questionable whether he even had human tethers. Okay, so when he went to work, he had two officers in plain clothes to go with him. All right. But when he jogging on the beach and flying around to Virgin Islands and all that, did he even have a tether on? Or
right.
was the police traveling with him?
Well, let's see what she says. She didn't say a tether, so
Yeah, I'm almost sure she's not going to say a tether.
right. Ex- what do you need a tether for when he's free to do whatever he
They
want to
giving
do?
him this type of freedom. They not gonna put a tether on his leg.
Exactly.
Why would you allow this man guilty as sin to essentially just run a sheriff's office for a few months and then do whatever he wants thereafter? Well, Alex Acosta faced a lot of pressure when Trump nominated him for Secretary of Labor. And he told reporters years later that it wasn't in his control. He said, quote, I was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, and that Epstein
Mm,
was above my pay grade.
mm,
Excuse me,
Okay.
above the
mhm.
pay grade? The Attorney General of the Southern District?
So I said to him, no, Nigel, not
Damn
without the
mercy.
free. In
Florida? Who exactly is paying Epstein? What colony of COSARs, what are we calling them, could be so powerful, almost bored with their power, if we're going back to this space book, bored with their power, that they would allow this to take place and have confidence, know fully well that even if they get caught, who cares? I mean, you'd have to be so powerful and so politically extremist, like that book suggests, that you could, like, I don't know, sink the USS Liberty, maybe shoot a sitting president in broad daylight while you're at it, and still have politicians referring to you as friends and allies. Anyways, let's not get lost here.
What
There are some
year
more
was
interesting
this?
facts about Jeffrey Epstein. One, he had
Um,
working.
I don't know.
Mm,
I don't she didn't really give a date with the timeline, so I don't
So,
know.
hmm, I'm interested to know who was the president.
Hmm. This happened before Trump's first term, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't that mean
It
Obama was
says
president?
2008.
Obama was president.
Mm. Hmm.
In 2008, Obama was president.
Yeah, he faced criminal charges in 2006, but he went to prison in 2008.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
He had a working fake passport. That's incredible. He had an Austrian passport with a totally fake name that
Mm,
placed his residence in Saudi Arabia, and it worked. So, yeah, he was a Fed. Obviously, he was very high up in the deep state, and he used
mm,
this passport to enter countries throughout the 1980s when he was very young, the 1980s, guys, including the United Kingdom, Spain, Saudi Arabia. He also had a very compelling interest in artwork, okay? And you've probably seen this. He had this artwork of Bill Clinton in Monica Lewinsky's dress above his desk. And that's interesting in general because I don't know if you know this, but President Clinton was blackmailed. He was blackmailed by Israel because they
mm,
wanted to get this deal done with the Palestinian Authority and also were pressuring him to release one of their assets, Jonathan Pollard. Now, Jonathan Pollard, to give you a background here, was another agent of Israel. He was actually a CIA analyst who was found guilty and went to prison for 30 years for spying on behalf of Israel. So he worked for the US government, but he was spying on behalf of Israel. Anyways, this is according to the Times of Israel. Let's take a look at what happened. Netanyahu said to have offered Lewinsky tapes for Pollard. Okay. It reads in this article that Israel attempted to use tapes of the former US President Bill Clinton's steamy conversations with intern Monica Lewinsky to leverage the release of Jonathan Pollard. That's at least what the book regarding the Clinton family was claiming. The book is entitled Clinton Inc. And the subtitle is The Audacious Rebuilding of a Political Machine. And the author, Daniel Halper, relies on the record interviews with former officials, together with a close analysis of documents that were termed the quote unquote Monica files. And it tells the story of one of the most prominent political families in the United States, being the Clintons. According to the author, the documents indicate that during the Y plantation talks, so these were plantation talks, like it was held on the Y plantation in Maryland, okay, between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. And Bill Clinton was in the middle of this because, you know, there's always drama happening there in 1998. And Netanyahu wasn't getting what he wanted. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, our dear friend and ally, pulled Bill Clinton aside, and he presses, first and foremost, for the release of Jonathan Pollard. This is directly from the Times of Israel article. I'm going to read this quote. The Israelis present at Y River had a new tactic for their negotiations. They'd overheard Clinton and Monica, and they had it on tape. Not wanting to directly threaten the powerful American president, a crucial Israeli ally, Clinton was told that the Israeli government had thrown the tapes away. But the very mention of them was enough to constitute a form of blackmail, Halper wrote, adding that, quote, according to information provided by a CIA source, a stricken Clinton appeared to buckle. Our friend and ally is at it again, you guys. Yep, they're at it again. Hey, just want to let you know, I have tapes of you with Monica Lewinsky, but I'm going to throw them away. Oh, I don't know. Why do you have tapes of what took place in the White House? What's going on? Should we ask questions? No, we shouldn't ask questions. We should never just ask questions. Anyways, yes, obviously, the entire world knows that Jeffrey Epstein was their asset. He was working for them, obviously, okay? From Ghislaine Maxwell and her father's involvement with the Mossad and who attended his funeral. Leslie Wexner, look up everything that he donates to. I mean, he's essentially, you know, he works for Israel. This is like a known fact. But you guys, I want you to be calm. It's all good. Because now the Department of Justice has come out and they say that Jeffrey Epstein, he had no list. The girl has no name. Here it is in Axios. The DOJ, the FBI conclude that Epstein had no client list and he died by suicide. Nothing to see here. And that's what happened. They made that conclusion. They had no evidence that the convicted sex offender and disgraced financier, or even calling him that, I don't even know how he's allowed to be deemed a financier, that there was no evidence that he blackmailed powerful figures, that he kept a client list, or that he was murdered.
So why would he have a client list?
I guess because he would want to put himself in, tell on himself, give the evidence.
He already been busted.
You're right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
He got sentenced to freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he keep a client list?
For no good reason.
A client list would only incriminate him.
That's the word right there.
So his client list is probably like just different people in his phone directory. Maybe not everybody, but he wasn't like stupid.
Right.
Why would he keep a client list?
Exactly.
She's confirming that, you know, all his clients didn't go to his island.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them clients got their products delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he keep a record of all his transactions
Right.
and everything else when he knew the heat was on him.
Exactly. That would be really dumb.
And everybody is like, Trump got to be on the Epstein list. What Epstein list? The flight
Right, like which
logs,
one? Right, exactly. And
yeah,
they
it's
already that's
phone
already
book,
exactly. The evidence list.
the party goers. Like they know what he used his plane for, and they don't. They said Trump is not on his flight logs for going to his island on the plane. Trump
Right.
used his plane to go home, didn't he?
Yep, him and his family at times too. I doubt very seriously that him and his family would be going to Epstein Island.
Right. And furthermore, how how would Epstein just get access to this list if it did exist? That don't even make sense to me.
No.
Why would okay, well you cool with Trump now, I guess here. You can see the list. You can see everybody on the list. Yeah, I know you ain't got nothing to do with the FBI, the CIA, or anything.
And
But
what
here,
would be
Elon, you can see the list.
right? And what would be the purpose of a list when he got videotapes? Like, what is a list gonna do?
Why would Trump show him the list if he was on it?
Exactly. No, no, they're right.
Don't need to go no further than that, do you?
Right, right. Nope. Nope.
All right.
according to the memo. And now, if you're thinking, didn't we see when the FBI raided his home that there was a photo and he had all of these tapes? That's a lot of stuff. Yeah, here's another photo. It just seems like he maybe had a lot, but no, guys, that's not, there's nothing that indicates anything at all. Nothing at all. And yeah, they also are releasing some raw and enhanced versions of footage of the Manhattan prison where Epstein was held the night that he died. And they say that the video supports the medical examiner's findings that Epstein died by suicide. And the footage is hilarious. Just it's like one image. They're like, see, no one walks towards his cell. I mean,
Now
oh,
that
okay.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, now that don't make sense.
Right.
Why
I
would
go ahead. I'm sorry.
he commit suicide with all that freedom he had?
And see, his cell is supposed to be on the bottom, all the way over to the right. It's out of view of the camera. I really, with hearing, what I'm hearing, what we hearing right now, I wonder, was he even unalive, or did they get him out of there?
We don't know. Like he got his own island and we don't
Right. I
nobody
believe
else
he
took
is
ownership of that island. Nobody is talking about what's going on his island right now.
right. And if he's got all of this favor in prison, why would anybody need to do anything? They I mean, like, he can just go to another island, like how people want to run to our country, run from their crimes. If anybody can run, he can. He was getting in and out of there when he wanted to. So,
Right.
was he really unalived, or was it? I mean, with his involvement and what he was involved in, like the Israel intelligence or whatever. I mean, they helped him. It looked like he was being looked out all the way around the board.
Crazy, ain't it?
Yeah, very. I believe
Here
that
it is, guys.
Joker. I'm sorry.
I get
I believe it.
No, go ahead. My bad.
I believe that Joker is alive and somewhere on a whole nother island. Might be on Epstein Island.
Right. He might be on his own island.
Exactly.
Who
Nobody
would
looking
know?
for him. Right.
Yeah.
Nobody looking for him.
Do he still own the island?
Is it still kids over there? Are those kids missing that they looking for? Or are they over there?
I don't
I mean,
know.
he don't seem to care about getting in trouble further.
Right.
And now nobody is looking for him. So is he over there and got a bunch of them kids that they can't find?
I'm I'm really wondering that. Maybe we should look into it.
Right. Because I mean, they would know when he's going to get out, and all of this is happening under, I hate to say, I mean, to say a party, but the Democratic Party. Kids
Yeah.
missing under the Democratic Party. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He's connected to Israel intelligence. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's a shame that, all the politicians is turning out to be Democrats
The
just messing around with them kids.
Yeah, the biggest criminals ever, the worst criminals ever. And
That's
no wonder they
crazy.
don't mind. Yeah, no wonder they don't mind these illegals coming over here doing this stuff. It's normal to them.
They just quit talking about all those kids that disappeared at the border.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And how many won't be found?
Well, they had some reports out. I don't know how true they were, but they were saying that different agents had found some kids in some tunnels.
Yeah, they probably all over the place, but I mean, where was Jeffrey getting them from? Jeffrey.
Well, his procurer was Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh, okay.
She the one that had the plugs with
Wow.
that.
Wow.
So I don't know. Like, didn't she get sentenced for that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's something they were asking. Why is she locked up if it wasn't no list?
I guess they don't know nothing about her court case. They had other evidence. They didn't have to have a list
Right.
for them to have evidence.
Right.
They had incriminating evidence on her and Epstein.
Right.
The purpose was for the list is what they hope to find so that they could get other people in his network.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not something they found. Had they found that, they would have already been in motion with those indictments.
Mm-hmm.
Them people would have been indicted. It's not a crime to just be a passenger on his plane.
Right.
They needed more than that.
Right. Well, guess what? For Trump, it's a crime to be on his plane. Everybody else, they good. Because I don't hear nobody else name being brought up. And I've heard other names. Like Clinton was on there. Now,
For
I'm
Trump,
not.
it's a crime to wipe his butt from front to back.
Right. Right. That's for sure. But everybody when before Elon said what he said, nobody was asking. They wasn't even talking about that list. When he said Trump was on there, them jokers like, we want to see the list. I
Elon
mean,
should
wouldn't he be in the videotapes?
Oh, Trump?
Yeah, and I'm saying if he were over there, wouldn't he be on the videotapes
If he was over where?
on Epstein Island?
Well, let's look at it like this. If you were going someplace to commit some crimes,
Mm-hmm.
would you document it?
I wouldn't, which is why I'm tripping at the people names that are on the list. That he even have a list. But I guess the flight log is, you
No, he
know,
didn't have a, like I'm saying, Epstein wasn't stupid.
mhm,
He came from Mossad. That's like FBI, CIA.
mhm.
He would not be keeping evidence on himself, especially
Oh,
after he done already been busted once.
okay. When I say list, I'm talking about the flight log.
The flight log is FAA regulation.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's the aviation,
Yeah, when you got ships and planes,
right?
you have to have a flight log. That's your
Right.
passenger list.
Exactly.
They have to know how many souls is on board and what
Mhm.
souls are on board.
Right.
So you can't fly and you can't have a shipping vessel without that information.
Right.
And all planes got to have a black box. There's certain information that they record. But
Right.
what they're not going to record is the criminal activity.
Right. And
And like how do you distinguish a client list from anything else if you don't have on said list what the client is doing?
right.
Like, why would they say, uh, well, so and so, he was with this little girl right here? Why would they put that in a
Right.
book?
And here's the receipt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they was in room 13 and they used the
Right.
they used the
Right.
pink sheets that day, the pink
Exactly.
satin sheets. Her
Right.
stain still on it. Why would they do
Right.
that?
Right.
That's not what they were doing. He was trying to protect his clients because, he wanted repeat business, and that's why
Right.
he got repeat business.
Right.
Why he gonna go through all that? He done went and got an island, got a resort built on it,
Right.
bought planes and everything else
Exactly.
just to have like one-time customers and then tell on everybody as they coming.
Right.
Like people ain't
Exactly.
it's that's like it's really common sense.
Yeah. Seriously. But I guess common sense ain't so common like they say, because I promise you, I brought that up on a live earlier, and I mean they was like, well, Trump can't do no wrong. Y'all, yeah, he can't never do no wrong.
Well, I guess that would mean that they just don't know how to find the wrong that he did.
No, they saying conservatives and Republicans can't never find Trump wrong.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, when somebody say, well, he can't do no wrong, everybody do something wrong. But,
Oh yeah,
maybe
right,
y'all just can't find it. Maybe the wrong shit that he's doing is really petty and y'all should shut the fuck up.
right,
That's
right,
that's really what I think it is. Cause he Trump, he tells on himself all the time. He is
right.
narcissistic.
Hmm.
And he been rich a long, long time, but he keeps it real.
Right.
He keep it real. He ain't smart enough to be lying like that.
Hmm.
When he attracted to somebody, it come right out of his mouth.
Right.
He don't strike me as no child molester. You see how he acted
Me.
standing next to the African woman from
Yeah.
South Africa? He was like, "Oh, you beautiful." Now I'm not
Right.
saying that, I ain't gonna put it past him. I don't know. I'm just saying,
Most people that's like that, seriously, when you got that kind of illness, you'll do it to your own kid.
I, yeah, quite possible. But we haven't seen no evidence of it.
Exactly.
We never seen any evidence of it, and nobody said anything about it until he got into politics.
Exactly.
And he told that he was friends with Epstein.
Right.
He told that he had been donating to Hillary's campaigns, etc.
Hmm.
He told that, he liked to get a prostitute here and there. He told
Hmm.
all of that.
Right.
He didn't say nothing about no molesting kids. He said he wanted to go after them because they was molesting kids.
Right. Right.
But now all of a sudden he guilty. He didn't have to say nothing about Epstein.
Right. And he trying to rescue the kids that's missing.
You
No,
see what
he
I'm
is
saying?
rescuing the kids.
It sounds like just
Looking.
about a bunch of wild accusations because he's actually accomplishing a
Right.
lot of the things that they said they wanted to do.
Right. And eventually they know that they're gonna get exposed because it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the pew pew.
I hope you're right.
Mhm.
I hope you're right about that. I hope they do get exposed.
Mhm.
You know, I think they are so they are buried so deep in the system
Right.
that as reckless as they were covering their tracks,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's gonna find any evidence on them that they really can't buy their way out of.
Mhm.
You know, it looks pretty bad for a whole lot of people being on his flight list.
Yeah.
But you see the difference in those people's treatment and what Trump is getting. Trump wasn't even on his flight logs.
Mhm.
He was not going to the island anyway.
Right.
But you know who was, right?
Yep. Billy
And
Boy.
huh?
Who? Billy Boy.
I don't even want to just start naming names. But
Okay.
I mean, you know, if we want to pull up the list, but wasn't Bill Clinton on there?
That's who Billy Boy is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't Obama on there?
Yep.
Wasn't it countless entertainers on there?
Yep. Politicians,
What were any of them
entertainment.
do? What were any of them doing going to Epstein Island?
Exactly.
So we done forgot all about the flight logs and we done
Mhm.
excused everybody that was on the flight logs. Why?
Right.
Because Trump is president now.
Exactly.
Now we gotta ditch that list and find a list with his name on it.
Right. Exactly.
You ready to roll it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, that means since no one entered the cell this way, that it's totally impossible that anybody entered another way. It's totally impossible that anything else happened because look, we're showing you the footage, friends. It's over. Look away. I mean, now the nation that cared so much about Jonathan Pollard that they blackmailed Clinton to get him back, to try to get him back. And when that failed, they still were able, by the way, to get Jonathan Pollard. He received a pardon in 2021. Incredible. Guilty. Fully admitted that he is guilty. Israel has admitted that he received a pardon in 2021 from President Trump. I'm not kidding. They said this would go a long way in just healing, tensions between Israel and America. And so even though he was already out of prison, they felt that this next step should be taken, which is to say, just wipe his record clean. And President Trump did that in 2021. And then what Jonathan Pollard did as soon as he got that pardon was he got on a plane and went to Israel and was greeted on the tarmac by President Netanyahu. Yay! Smiley face. Anyways, it might sound like I don't believe any of this, and I don't want you guys. I don't want you guys to walk away and have my attitude. I can be a cynic. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I've read what the press says about me, so I will first and foremost remind you that this is kind of strange to hear, only because Pam Bondi definitely said on Fox News in February that the client list was on her desk. I mean, I'll let you guys watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
Wait. She seen the client list, but nothing suspicious. She said there's a client list on her desk, but nothing
Can
suspicious.
you? Is
Is
that
that
what
what
she
I
said?
just
Can you
heard?
rewind it? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think I
Now
should,
he
cause
said anything that, yeah, because I don't think she had reviewed the stuff yet.
okay, let's listen again.
Okay.
Watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to
What she say?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
What she say was sitting on her desk?
Well, he said, man, it said,
Let's do that one more again.
okay. He said May or something like that.
As about me. So I will first and foremost remind you that this is kind of strange to hear, only because
in this case, in Epstein's case, it is
Wait a minute, did I
incredibly
get lost?
disturbing. We have flight logs, we
Wait a
have
minute,
information,
I got
names
lost. Hold on.
that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing.
She just said she's reviewing Epstein's client list as directed by Trump.
Yeah, she
Maybe
said. So the what's her name? The other lady. She said she was talking about the entire files were sitting on her desk, and she had to review them. Now that's how she explained it.
yeah, she would have to explain that away though, because what she just said right here was the client list is sitting on her desk. Right? Is that how that's supposed to be taken, the way she worded that?
Well, she never said. I think he said it. He said.
He asked the question and she said, yes, it's sitting on my desk. One more time.
Okay.
Watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
See, when she say not yet, it lead me to believe that she haven't looked at the stuff yet. Because of course it's gonna be stuff in there if she saw it that's gonna be like, whoa.
Right. But what is the it that's sitting on her desk? She said it's the client list. He said the DOJ is talking about releasing the client list. Could that possibly happen? Yeah, May release the client list.
Yeah.
Could that possibly happen? She said, it's sitting on my desk. She didn't say, well, and a file of Epstein paperwork is on my desk. She said, yes, it is sitting on my desk. That's just the English language.
Yeah.
That's how that works. He specified client list. And she said yes. What she should have been saying is, I don't know if there's a client list, but I do have the Epstein file on my desk. She didn't say that. She went with yes, it's sitting on my desk. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she had a blind moment.
I didn't.
If there is
Did
such
she
a
say
thing.
yes or did she say it's sitting on my desk?
Let's do that one more time.
Okay.
Because I hate to put words in people's mouth.
Right.
I hate when people do it to me. So
Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting.
Anyway,
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
He specified list. She said it's
Yeah, he
sitting on
did.
her desk, right? She didn't
Right.
say the Epstein file is. She said the client list is sitting on her desk to review.
Mm-hmm. But they sound like the dude who asked, how would they know that it's a client list?
Who know? The guy who's asking?
Yeah.
He said the DOJ said it. Let's go back one more again.
Okay.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients.
Let me
See,
go
he
back
didn't
a
say
little bit
that.
further.
Okay.
I'm a conspiracy theorist. I've read what the press says about me. So I will first and foremost remind you that this is kind of strange to hear, only because Pam Bondi definitely said on Fox News in February that the client list was on her desk. I mean, I'll let you guys
See, even Candace interpreted that way.
watch the clip of what she said on Fox News. Take a listen.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay.
If I saw a client list, I would be like, oh my God.
Right.
Well, we'll check back with you.
And then Alina Habba went on to Piers Morgan in February and said that they had flight logs, information, that they had names. I mean, take a listen.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking.
We put every penny into Love Luxury. We
Skews
ate
and commercials.
noodles for like
That there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe.
So you think that he would incriminate himself now?
Me?
Yeah.
Epstein?
Yeah.
No.
So do you think maybe him wording it like that was his vocabulary, basically asking about the list of people? I mean,
No, because the flight log has been out. That came out years ago.
Okay. Oh, okay.
The flight log has been out. He's specifically asking about the client list.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I never thought Epstein would criminalize himself. I never thought that he would document something like that.
Right.
Not being tied up between Mossad, CIA, and FBI. Why would he do that?
Right.
That's guaranteed. That's guaranteed elimination. You know, you asking to be eliminated.
Well, that's
Doing
why I'm
something like that.
confused right there because it don't make sense to me that he would do that.
Well, the media drug it out and they kept presenting it to the people like that. And now that the truth is coming out that he did not have a client list, people are mad because they wanted it to be a client list and they wanted Trump to be on it.
And I'm wondering if maybe she thought, by them asking about it, maybe it is a client list in there. And if it is, it's on her desk.
No, there's no client list in there.
So
I've been saying it for years that there's no client list.
Right. So what was this conversation about?
That, like, come on now. Did Meech keep a client list?
Right. No.
Right. Would he keep a client list?
No, I'm not thinking that it would be one in there, but I'm saying like everybody is saying how well Candace just said that she said that it's a client list in there. I mean, I didn't
Pam
hear her
Bondi,
say
Pam
that it.
Bondi said the client list was on her desk because he asked about it.
Mm-hmm.
He said that the DOJ is talking about releasing Epstein's client list. Could that possibly happen? She said, it's sitting on my desk.
Right.
She didn't specify something else. He didn't ask about no flight logs.
Right.
He didn't ask about a seating chart or anything else. He said
Mm-hmm.
the client list.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yes, she said, it's sitting on my desk. She
The DOJ.
specified it. She didn't, there was only one noun. There was only one subject there. That subject was the client list. Some criminals are that stupid, like, the numbers guy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the numbers guy used to keep a list, and that's what we're busting.
Mm-hmm.
But, the number guys started memorizing their numbers, and it made them hard to bust.
Mm-hmm.
Epstein knew that.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to keep a quote unquote client list. He
Well,
knows
I'm.
who his clients are. He not a door-to-door salesman. His clients is contacting him. What do he need a list for?
So why would she say that?
Pam Bondi?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Why would any of the media say that? Why would the DOJ say that? Why would any of them say that?
Right.
Like if they already had one, okay, they would say that. But they was hoping to find um a hard drive of Epstein's with a client list on it.
Mm.
But it's we from the streets. We know how crime goes now.
Right.
The dope man is not a he's not a door-to-door salesman, okay?
Mm-hmm.
People go looking for him. So what does he need a list for?
Right.
Either he knows who he's dealing with or he don't.
Right.
He don't need a list to say, "Oh, I got a redhead. Let me check the list to see who like redheads." No, that's not how they was doing it. His clients was contacting him, and then he'd hit up Lane and be like, "Hey, this is what we need," and then she would make it happen. What do you need why do you need a client list for that?
Right.
He don't. It don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But people believe any and everything they hear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know you heard me. I know you heard me say a long time ago there wasn't no client list.
Mm-hmm.
Why would there be?
Right.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay.
That now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my little Men in Black tool, and just wipe your memory real quick. Phew, phew. She didn't say any of that. Phew. Okay, cool. Now let's run Caroline Levitt at the White House briefing earlier today. Take a listen.
DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable. And I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the president's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox
I've
News.
got the quote.
Go ahead.
Sean Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of
One
Jeffrey
second.
Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that.
I could say that it's really hard, but I had to do it because I had a family.
There you have it, you guys. That is transparency. That's transparency. I mean, I don't know what more you want from your government. Do you feel like they're laughing at us? I feel like they're laughing at us. We are definitely in clown world. I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan because I think he plays a role in the coming AI system of controlling global affairs. But he did nail it with this clown meme tweet. I will say that. We will release the Epstein list. We just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk. There is no Epstein list. It just happened, like just right in our face. And
but if you saw the client list, Elon, why didn't you snap pictures of it?
And why he say Epstein list instead of client list?
Well, I don't know. I think sometimes Elon Musk conveniently plays stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in this case, he's basically being a heckler.
Mm-hmm.
He's mad about the EV mandate Trump removed.
Right.
He's pissed about it, and now he's having a little tantrum.
Right.
But if there was a list of Epstein's that was not released to the public, Elon Musk would have never saw it.
Right.
He's not supposed to see evidence like that
Right.
in investigations.
Right.
Like, why? And why would you wait till you pissed at him to say it anyway?
Exactly. And why would you have your kid around him if you know that he's on that list?
Crazy.
Right.
He when he saw his name, he should have been like, "Oh, I'm keeping this list. Nope, I'm
Right.
sorry. No, I'm telling on you."
Right.
Instead of just waiting,
Exactly.
letting it fester. And then he
Exactly.
himself said that he went a little bit too far.
Right. Now he's
And
going again.
in other words, he stretched the truth a little bit.
Right.
He went too far. So, of course, that means there was no client list and he didn't see Trump's name on it.
Right.
But
And he
now
wanted.
he's mad because this so-called list that he lied and said he saw before.
Right.
Mad because it don't exist.
Right.
Get out of here, Elon. Your credibility is blown.
And people
At this
only care
point.
to see that list. I mean, the whole thing is, who cares? I really don't, to be honest. But they got videos and stuff like that. But okay, we got the list of people that was on the flight. We got the list of contacts. You got the victims list. I mean, the evidence list. Go read the evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
read the evidence, and if somebody is to be investigated, investigate the people on the flight log.
right.
Go interview them and find out why they went to Epstein Island and what they did.
Right.
Like if Trump's name ain't on that list, leave him alone. Stop the witch
Right.
hunt.
Right. No, they listen. They desperate for him to be on the list.
I know.
If they did show what list is this, the client list, and nothing is on there, then they gonna want to see something else and something else. And I'm like, I mean, geez, what y'all want to see it for? What y'all need to see it for? For gossip, for content? Like,
No, for a legitimate reason to impeach him.
and then what about all the other people?
They need something like that to try in an attempt to save the Democratic Party.
Right. And you
Like
know what?
Elon Musk knows the Democratic Party is dying. That's why he's talking about starting another one.
But
Why
Trump,
wouldn't he try to revive the Democratic Party?
exactly. But Trump said, because he probably gonna try to run for president next.
Who?
Trump said,
Elon?
yeah.
He can't.
Trump said, oh, okay. Trump said that some people in I don't know if you heard this, but he said, and don't quote my words directly, but some people in government asked him not to put that list out.
The client list.
I don't know what list, but he said that they asked him not to put it out. They asked him was he gonna release the files or something like that, and he said maybe so. He was like, but some very I don't know if he said important people in the government asked him not to. So I don't know. It could have been the Pope. It could have been anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do that or whoever because
No,
they.
he just said some very important people asked him, to not release the files, not open the files
Mhm.
like he did with the
Mhm.
Kennedy files.
Yeah.
And like, didn't Caroline Levitt, didn't she just say that they took out the pornographic images and the videos, but they releasing everything else?
Yeah.
That's what she said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there is a client list and they have it, it's going to be released.
Mhm.
But they just don't have any list on it that just says clients.
Mhm.
And they're not going to find that because it doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Criminals like that don't keep client lists.
Right.
We just talked about why would they?
Right.
He's not a door-to-door salesman.
Right.
Why would he be
Right.
why would he be keeping records of like sexual activity?
Unless he was trying to blackmail him or something.
And if he was trying to blackmail him, he still wouldn't just like store that information. It would have been transferred to somebody else.
Exactly.
If his job was to just facilitate the transaction and document it, he would have moved that information to whoever was paying for it.
Right.
He wasn't in the business of blackmail.
Right.
That wasn't his job. He wasn't blackmailing anybody.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to say that, he wasn't blackmailing for somebody else and selling the information. We don't know that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But, it still don't make sense for him to have a client list.
Right.
Like if he was blackmailing people, his client list would be the evidence and the information that he had on them. Not why would he need a table of contents for information that he has?
Right. And we don't know how deep this go. It could be people in other countries on there, threat,
It
anything.
is people in other countries on there.
Right. That could
That's
pose a
already
threat.
established. Like Prince Andrew ain't from the United States. He's from over there. That's part of the royal family.
Right. Right.
And to my understanding, there was people on there from all over the place.
Right.
Saudi Arabia and, many other countries. But
Mhm.
that's a flight log.
Right.
It's not a client list.
Right.
It just don't make sense for him to have a client list. He got little breadcrumbs to tell you, some of the people that was hanging around, but it don't tell you what he did for them people and what them people did if they met any children or what they did with the children. So he would not have anything that would be an obvious client.
And then too, they said that uh some people won't be prosecuted because of the statute of limitation.
Hmm.
So even possibly legally, because it's a judge that had ruled against it before releasing those documents.
Hmm.
Yeah, a judge had ruled against it, advised against it, ruled against it actually. So I believe it has to go through a judge.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it has to go through a system,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure that system is protecting somebody.
Right.
And I do not believe it's Trump
Right.
because this shit it was happening before he ran and they had a lot of this evidence before he ran. And as hard as they was trying to
Yeah, exactly.
impeach him, kill him, and everything else,
Right.
if they had evidence on him dealing with Epstein,
Right.
they definitely would not have been hiding it in that time period.
Exactly.
Remember, the Democrats had control of that information. Why
Right.
wouldn't they release it if Trump was
Exactly.
on the Epstein list and they know it?
Why would they hide it and lock it away where nobody can get to it?
Exactly. Obama knew Trump was gonna run.
Why would they get rid of files?
They definitely not gonna get rid of anything with Trump's name on it. Now I
Now,
could see them getting rid of files, because of other dignitaries being on it. Like if the Pope was on it, I could see them trying to destroy that.
right.
But Trump being on it, no, 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 no.
Right.
No, they're not going to destroy that. As bad as they were trying to get rid of him and stop him from running,
Exactly.
they would have convicted him on that
Right.
and still protected everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Ready to roll it?
Yep.
All right.
Listen, if I was writing a fantasy novel about Costers getting away with everything, I don't know, like I would, and they're bored with their power, this would maybe be the plot line. But the book was written before the plot line happened, so it's almost like it just gets planned, and then they just get so bored. They're like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if we just put it in a book? Like, I don't know, just put it in a book, what we're doing. Haha, laughing in everybody's faces. Feels like that. Interestingly enough, though, I was contacted by someone, a certain someone. For those of you who enjoyed my Brigitte series, Xavier Poussard has been working quite diligently over the last couple of years, not just on the story of Brigitte Macron and this weird ring that happens in France, but also that investigation brought him to Jeffrey Epstein. Because Jeffrey Epstein, as Ghislaine Maxwell, she was French as well, Mossad, and the investigation of Brigitte brought him to Jeffrey Epstein, and he said to me, Candace, would you want to do a series on Epstein? He asked me this about 2 months ago. And what I heard was, would you like to die? Would you like to die? Because that's kind of where, like, I mean, do you want to play around with that colony of the Cossers, the fake fictional one that totally doesn't exist? Do you want to play a game sort of a thing? And thinking maybe it could be interesting to hear what Xavier Poussard has to say. I think we got to team up. And he said to me, you need to understand this is bigger than even the Mossad and the CIA. It is a game that has been run for a very long time. Listen, that's what Xavier is saying. He mentioned some interesting names. And maybe where our government, with all of their resources, is failing the people, the actual journalists, which means if you are an actual journalist, the mainstream media hates you because they work for the state, right? They're a part of the club. We're not in it. And Xavier Poussard is pretty hated. I mean, he had to flee for his life. That's interesting. Like, he's not even allowed to live in France, and I wouldn't step foot on that soil. I don't know. Maybe it will be up to us. So what can I say, guys? Stay tuned.
When you think of diamond rings for men, you're probably thinking of rings like this. Today, we're going to show you a new.
Throw to a couple of our sponsors before we get into Tucker Carlson. Remember, you have to hate Tucker Carlson, according to last week. Want to remind you guys about Gold Co. A lot of people and pastors apparently also along with me. And he did this thing. Like, journalists used to do this thing, or maybe they never did this thing, but Tucker is doing this thing where he seems to not necessarily trust the narratives that are being provided by the mainstream media. And he thinks it's better to go directly to the source of their ire. And so when they're going, rah, 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 we got to go to war. And let me tell you, we are not finished with Iran. Okay, do not be foolish. Oh, the 12-day war. LOL. Israel's defense systems were obviously low and they need to be replenished. That's my take. I'm sticking to it. Anyways, Tucker decided, hey, this would be a good time to maybe interview the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. And he did.
Masoud Pezeshkian.
He announced that interview on Saturday, and immediately, strangely, the Zionist lobby people on X were having a mental breakdown. Let's show some of these tweets. Who do you got? Arsen Ostrovsky writes, so much for America first. For you, Tucker, it seems to be Iran first. Ooh, sick burn. I don't know how he's going to survive that. Avi Amini writes, Tucker is anyone but America first. Oh, gosh, he couldn't be. Is he think he's going to allow Americans to think? This guy says the same thing. America first. Haha, that's now over. He know that to be America first, you have to know that Americans can't think and they need to be propagandized and they shouldn't be able to hear both sides of an argument. I do always do that, by the way. I like to always just think about our foreign policy on like a more molecular level. Like, could you imagine if you had, let's just say, two kids that were fighting and they get into a fight and you're like, what happened? But you're like, I don't want to hear what you say, only you. I only trust you. Tell me what happened. And like, we're just not going to hear this version at all. And no matter what, we're just going to go, but we're going to punish this individual without ever hearing their side. It's completely crazy that we wouldn't hear the other side. Doesn't mean the other person's telling you the truth 100%, but we know sure as hell American journalists are not telling us the truth at all. So let's hear both sides and try to, I don't know, critically think. That's my idea here. Anyways, I could show you a couple of clips here from that interview that has people freaking out. The first thing that I found so interesting was the discussion regarding a fatwa, okay? Because I'm going to tell you truthfully, I came up in
Discussion
Zionist media.
regarding a fat what?
Huh? A fatwa?
I don't know.
I don't either. It sounded like she said a fatwa.
Yeah. Let's see what a fatwa is.
Right.
Accidentally, just because I didn't really know much about Israel. And I was like, why not? Why wouldn't we want to defend people? Why wouldn't we want Jewish people to have a state? Like, I was very surface. And I was told repeatedly that a fatwa is issued and it basically is for sends a message to all the Muslims that if you see this person, you should kill them. Like, it's essentially a death threat. That is what a fatwa is. That is what I was told.
Whoa. I thought that was something X-rated. She talking about unaliving folks.
Right.
With a fatwa.
That's what Iran was saying?
Yeah. I guess you want to back it up. A
Yeah.
fatwa was issued.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's back it up a little bit.
So let's hear both sides and try to, I don't know, critically think. That's my idea here. Anyways, I could show you a couple of clips here from that interview that has people freaking out. The first thing that I found so interesting was the discussion regarding a fatwa, okay? Because I'm going to tell you truthfully, I came up in Zionist media accidentally just because I didn't really know much about Israel. And I was like, why not? Why wouldn't we want to defend people? Why wouldn't we want Jewish people to have a state? Like, I was very surface. And I was told repeatedly that a fatwa is issued and it basically is for sends a message to all the Muslims that if you see this person, you should kill them. Like, it's essentially a death threat. That is what a fatwa is. That is what I was told. Listen to what the Iranian president has to say, and then I'm going to show you the true definition of a fatwa, which kind of surprised me. Take a listen.
Two Iranian ayatollahs have issued fatwas against Donald Trump. What does that mean exactly, and what do you think of it?
To the best of my knowledge, they have not issued decrees or fatwas against any individual or against Donald Trump. And first off, it has nothing to do with the Iranian government or to His Eminence, the Supreme Leader of Iran. Or what they actually meant by the fatwa was in condemnation of an insult to a religion or religious personalities, and they were actually saying that this is deplorable, this is unacceptable. So it was not directed towards the U.S. president or any other individual. And there might be people with their own ideas and opinions, but I can assure you that the meaning of this fatwa should not be construed or considered as a threat against any individual.
Okay, so color me ignorant. Like I said, I was specifically told by people who I was working for and working with that it meant like this is a death threat, essentially, that once they say they issue a fatwa, that it means kill this person. And here is the actual definition of a fatwa. I just Googled this. It says a fatwa is a non-binding legal opinion in Islam issued by a qualified religious scholar known as a mufti on a specific issue. It serves as an interpretation of Islamic law. and provides guidance to Muslims on various aspects of life, including religious practices and ethical dilemmas. Fatwas are not considered legally binding judicial rulings, but rather legal advice or directives based on Islamic teachings. Just want to read that to you because I was totally surprised that that is what it was. It sounds like, when if you're a Catholic and is this Catholic doctrine and somebody has to furnish the answer to a yes or a no. That's what it sounds like. There could be more of it I'm missing, but that kind of caught me off guard because I just am constantly reassessing how unbelievably brainwashed I was previously. And again, this is not a defense of Iran. It's not a defense of Israel. It's just basically me standing up and saying how absurd it is that our media lies to us repeatedly. Then, regarding whether or not Iran tried to assassinate President Trump. Now, that very tough sell for me. Matthew Crooks did not look like he had it in with Iranians,
Pause,
particularly,
please.
and the way that it disappeared from our media.
If I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am, I heard the dude say it himself about Trump and Netanyahu.
What guy?
I don't even remember.
The
It was
guy, the guy at the golf course?
nope, he was on like just on TV and he was calling the Muslims to unalive Trump and Netanyahu.
You think you can pull up that video?
Yeah, let me see. Hold on 1 second.
I'm gonna let this roll while I'm waiting.
Makes me think that maybe somebody else might have been involved that had a lot of power. Okay. Here is what he had to say regarding any assassination plots towards President Trump. Take a listen.
Has Iran ever backed an assassination attempt against Donald Trump?
This is actually what Netanyahu is trying to insinuate and to make your people or the president of your country to believe. But this is wrong because Netanyahu, as I said, has its own agenda. It wants to drag the U.S. into forever wars, as I said, and to bring more insecurity, instability, and unrest to the whole region.
Okay, well, you're definitely not going to get a disagreement from me regarding Netanyahu. But I just want to be very clear. He's our friend and our ally. He's our friend and our ally. Definitely. My politicians say so. So it definitely must be true. If I had to guess, some people that might have been on the Epstein list, it might have been like, almost the whole of Congress.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Just share it. Or you can send it.
Okay, I'm not sure. I'm looking for the actual dude. Let me see. I'm gonna play it first. What is this dude at? I heard him say it. Send this one to you, and then if you could look at, well, where should I send it? Messenger?
Yeah, send it in Messenger.
Let me look at this one. This one is Israel. It says top Iranian cleric issues fatwa calling for Muslims to kill Trump and Netanyahu as enemies of Allah. But I heard the dude say it.
Okay, let's see.
I gotta okay. Let's see. On Google.
The mission: sneak inside, give out Pepsi to enhance the food's flavor.
To Will and Diane, you go together like Pepsi and hot dogs.
Babe, who is that?
I don't know, but he is right about the Pepsi and hot dogs.
How many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol.
A startling assessment of just how open our borders were during the Biden administration, especially now as the Trump administration ramps up its monitoring of Iran-backed sleeper cells. More than 400 terrorism-related encounters occurred at our borders during the Biden administration. That includes hundreds of foreigners on the U.S. terrorist watch list encountered while trying to enter the country illegally under the Biden administration, and millions of others seen on surveillance cameras getting away. Joining us is the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. Look, here on the homeland, concerned about these sleeper cells, and you have Iran, who's been pummeled. I mean, their nuclear sites have been dismantled. But from the perspective of NATO, how do we assess what's happening in Iran right now, what their attitude and approach is, and how it relates to these sleeper cells that I think a lot of national security experts are quite concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very dangerous world, Jason. And I think, President Trump as a peacemaker has made it safer. But at the same time, we're still dealing with a lot of the consequences of 4 years of Joe Biden, including a porous border where not only did we have, as Tom Homan points out, over 1,200 Iranian nationals that came into our country that we know of, but you had over 1 million known gotaways that we have no idea who they are, where they went. And that's a real challenge. But at the same time, President Trump has been very clear about his policy towards Iran, that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they're at a decision point. They should move forward and seek peace. The Israelis have completely decimated.
Diagnosed with kidney cancer,
whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, and at the same, we've helped them as a country with both our work in the Red Sea against the Houthis and with the complete obliteration that we did with the bunker busters on their nuclear program. And so, Iran should come to the table and should sue for peace and should make a peace deal with the United States, with Israel, and just say no more. We want to be in the world where people seek prosperity and a bright future for their citizens. So, Jason, I think right now this puts a lot of pressure on our law enforcement, puts a lot of pressure on DOJ and the FBI to be right 100% of the time and seek out these sleeper cells and to make sure that they can't activate.
Well, you were the former acting attorney general. You have that interesting perspective. But my understanding is, Ambassador, that the supreme leader there in Iran, for the first time, we've actually seen him on camera since the devastating attack on the nuclear sites. What should we glean from that? And what in the short term and long term, what are we worried about here?
Yeah, well, it's coming from a place of weakness. The supreme, Ayatollah needs to show his face, needs to demonstrate that he's still in charge. But at the same time, he's been militarily completely decimated. His nuclear program has been obliterated, and he's in a position of weakness right now. And he's just trying to hold together his power because, the 90 plus million Iranian citizens want a better life. They don't want this war and conflict that he has fomented. It was kind of this policy of no war and no peace, where they had these proxy groups, and Israel put an end to a lot of that, took out their air defenses. And this is an interesting thing that's going on right now worldwide, is that air defenses are at a premium. They're low availability, and the United States, having just passed this one big beautiful bill, demonstrates through the this acceleration of the Golden Dome air defense and missile defense.
Those who are familiar with the
that ultimately we get it, that we're going to continue to be the world's preeminent superpower, and we will protect ourselves.
And let me shift gears here, Ambassador. Give us the latest update. Ukraine, Russia. Russia's been bombarding the Ukrainians with drones. What's the latest there? What is the posture of the United States, and what involvement, if any, are we going to take in this war?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, President Trump, the ultimate peacemaker, has made the world safer through the peace deals between Rwanda and the Congo, India, Pakistan, Israel, and Iran, with the end of the 12-day war. But at the same time, this Ukraine-Russia situation, President Trump wants a peace. He wants a ceasefire. But Vladimir Putin, who he talked to a couple days ago, doesn't seem to want to come to the table and actually negotiate. It appears that Zelensky does. I was in the room last week in The Hague where President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky sat down and talked about this. But at the same time, it's one thing to attack militaries, and we have thousands of people every week dying on the battlefield. But, Vladimir Putin is now attacking major cities like Odessa and Kyiv. And I think that is a crossing the line. And I think President Trump has told Vladimir Putin that attacking citizens is just not something that you can do legitimately. And so, President Trump wants peace. He wants to bring this to an end. But at the same time, in order to have peace, both sides have to come to the table and be willing to compromise, be willing to negotiate, and be willing to end the killing, because ultimately that's what needs to happen.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, thank you so much for joining us on Sunday Morning Futures.
Well, it wasn't on that one.
This is crazy because I heard him say it, and I'm looking and I'm pulling up everything that's said. And
sadly, windshield chips can turn into.
I heard the Joker say it. Would they have scrubbed it from the internet?
No, it's here. I'm looking at it. That just wasn't the video to it. So
yeah.
let me see if I can pull
they
up the
offering
video.
money. I sent you the.
It looked like he said that in 2017.
This was more recent that I saw it. But,
well, if it was recently, I could see them saying that after what Israel and the U.S. just did to them.
Yeah, but they were talking about Trump and Netanyahu. And is Netanyahu in that one?
In what one?
In this video you got up.
No, in the one we just watched. No, he's not in it.
See, he said Trump and Netanyahu.
Yeah, they didn't show any Iranian leader saying anything in that video we just watched.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's just funny because I'm looking for the video of him saying that, and I'm not finding it. Now there's, like different stuff saying it, but like it says. Because Trump just recently responded to it and said, if anything happens to his life, he said they will be liberated. How did you say that word?
Obliterated.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
already
so that
left
would have
his
been
order.
right. That would have been recent.
Yeah, it was. And he was saying it to that guy because he had just posted that video had just came up.
Hmm.
Now maybe I gotta dig a little more to find it, but it just seemed like it's been taken down. But he definitely said it. I heard him say it. He said he was calling all Muslims to take a stand or whatever, and uh, I forgot how he put it, but Trump and Netanyahu and he want them to bring him his head, their heads or something like that, and
Yeah, he
offering money.
probably said that before the ceasefire,
Maybe so.
because I don't see any more clips of it, and maybe it's a different guy.
See, like this one that says it, when I click on this, say application error.
Yeah, well, they might have scrubbed it. Who knows?
Yeah, because when I first tap it, I see Trump's picture, I see his story, but it won't go to the thing. And this was all. Let's see, this was all recently.
Yeah,
Okay,
I could
hold
see
on.
that being said recently.
Yeah, and Trump responded and said if anything happened to his life, he said he already done gave the word. They will obliterate whatever that word. And he already gave his word. I mean, gave orders.
Yeah, I'm almost sure that was before the ceasefire.
Yeah. See, it says Iran reveals new reward for unaliving Trump.
What's the date on that?
20, 23 hours ago.
That's an article or a video?
It's a video.
Maybe that's the fatwa she talking about.
You said maybe it's what?
Maybe that's the fatwa that Candace Owens is talking about.
Yeah.
And Tucker Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go back to see?
Sure. Because you know what don't make sense to me?
What's that?
He said it's about religion or something like that. But Trump ain't got nothing to do with that.
Who said it's about religion?
The guy in that video that we just watched.
Who?
That the first video, the Iranian dude.
Talking about Tom Homan?
When he was no, a matter of fact, the one Candace got where it was talking about a fatwa, and he was saying that it wasn't a unalignment threat. It was something, I forgot how he put it, but he
That was
said
based on the
religious.
definition of a fatwa.
Yeah,
But,
but
they may look at a fatwa in an entirely different way than what's actually defined there.
right, to me it sounded like they was talking about Christians, because they don't like Christians. But when
Oh.
he said what he said something about religion. And I'm like, what Trump got to do with religion?
Well, we can listen to it again.
Okay, yeah.
I thought the relevance to that was the definition of a fatwa. That's a religious decree,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it?
Let's hear it again.
Okay.
Okay, well, you're definitely not going to get a disagreement from me regarding Netanyahu. But I just want to be very clear. He's our friend and our ally. He's our friend and our ally. Definitely. My politicians say so. So it definitely must be true. If I had to guess from people that might have been on the Epstein list, it might have been like, almost the whole of Congress. But it's fascinating that the people are attacking Tucker for bringing you another version of events, like they attacked him when he sat down with Putin, because that almost should be the media's job if they were actually the fourth estate and were actually interested in making sure that our governments were not becoming too corrupt. They wouldn't attack journalists. Like I said, the journalists that are actually being attacked, if you Google someone's name and they're loved and celebrated by the media, you know that you should not be listening to that person. It's that simple. It really is that simple. Because to tell the truth is to render yourself an enemy of the state. That is just the reality that I'm living and that I am accepting. But I remain optimistic. Why do I have a smile on my face? Because people are waking up. They're waking up to these tactics. And I get it. Maybe the Costers are bored because they've had so much power and they control the education system and they've brainwashed so many of us and they're controlling the congressmen. And they're laughing at us and creating fantasy novels and just disappearing. I mean, everything of that it seems that they lock down, right? JFK's assassination, the Epstein files, it always pertains to whenever Israel's name is involved. That is just the reality. And people are just seem to be radically accepting that we've been deluded. We have been totally deluded. Of course, our awakening is not going to come without a fight like hell, because I do believe there could have been maybe a place that was settled by political extremists on the basis of everything that I've researched. And that's why I started this book club, had to say regarding any assassination plots towards President Trump. Take a listen.
Has Iran ever backed an assassination attempt against Donald Trump?
This is actually what Netanyahu is trying to insinuate and to make your people or the president of your country to believe. But this is wrong, because Netanyahu, as I said, has its own agenda. It wants to drag the U.S. into forever wars, as I said, and to bring more insecurity, instability, and unrest to the whole region.
Okay, well, you're definitely not going to get a disagreement from me regarding Netanyahu. But I just want to be very clear. He's our friend and our ally. He's our friend and our ally. Definitely. My politicians say so. So it definitely must be true. If I had to guess from people that might have been on the Epstein list, it might have been like, almost the whole of Congress. But it's fascinating that the people are attacking Tucker for bringing you another version of events, like they attacked him when he sat down with Putin, because that almost should be the media's job if they were actually the fourth estate and were actually interested in making sure that our governments were not becoming too corrupt. They wouldn't attack journalists. Like I said, the journalists that are actually being attacked,
that dude was denying it.
Who?
That the guy right there. He said Netanyahu was lying about the fatwa.
I heard the Joker say it out his mouth. Well,
the same guy?
Let me see.
When did he say it? Yesterday?
No, this was probably like close to when the ceasefire happened.
Okay,
I would say for sure, yeah, a couple weeks. It wasn't this week that just passed.
It was right after the definite ceasefire then.
Yeah.
After they named it the 12-day war and everything else.
Yeah.
But before yesterday.
Oh yeah. Long before yesterday.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I ain't gonna say long, but it's been at least a couple weeks, because it wasn't this week that just passed. But I will say it had to be probably like the week before that, because the ceasefire just ended. What, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that.
A week
But
and a half.
it just happened around then. But we know it ain't over.
Right.
We know that shit ain't over. So I mean, I could very well see them calling death to Trump and Netanyahu to the Muslim nations. They've been saying death to the U.S. for forever. So that
they scared. Nah, they done spoke out, and now they know what can happen.
Well, when you're getting smacked around, that's like the wrong time to start sticking out your chest.
Exactly.
Their nuclear capabilities may have gotten crippled.
Right.
And that's a definite sign that something was crippled if they agreed to a ceasefire, because
Right.
at first they was like, no, 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 no.
Right.
Get a ceasefire. No, we about to fight.
Right.
But somewhere in there they changed their mind. That is a definite sign of weakness.
Right.
They I don't think they were negotiating a ceasefire out of dominance there.
Right.
They was negotiating that ceasefire because they wanted them bombs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they would have kept going, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could
Yeah.
have. Nothing was stopping them except bombs, more bombs.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right. You want to hear the rest of this, or you want to
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay, yeah, because we near the end.
Right.
Google someone's name and they're loved and celebrated by the media, you know that you should not be listening to that person. It's that simple. It really is that simple. Because to tell the truth is to render yourself an enemy of the state. That is just the reality that I'm living and that I am accepting. But I remain optimistic. Why do I have a smile on my face? Because people are waking up. They're waking up to these tactics. And I get it. Maybe the Costers are bored because they've had so much power and they control the education system and they've brainwashed so many of us and they're controlling the congressmen. And they're laughing at us and creating fantasy novels and just disappearing. I mean, everything of that it seems that they lock down, right? JFK's assassination, the Epstein files, it always pertains to whenever Israel's name is involved. That is just the reality. And people seem to be radically accepting that we've been deluded. We have been totally deluded. Of course, our awakening is not going to come without a fight like hell, because I do believe there could have been maybe a place that was settled by political extremists on the basis of everything that I've researched. And that's why I started this book club. And it's going to get interesting. They are going to be extreme in trying to stop this awakening. But we also have to be just as extreme in our commitment to telling the truth. That's how I feel. That's why I wake up and do what I do every day. And that's why I'm so happy, because once you've committed yourself just to the truth, not to money, then I just feel like you're actually free. You are truly free. And so that's what I'm going to do. Anyways, you guys, before I get into some of your comments, heavy episode today. I'm going to tell you about a couple more of my sponsors. Qatar, Iran. Just kidding. Telling you guys about Pure Talk. If you guys to it, but the good news is that
Wow. This is so cute. I love these glasses. It looks
Cute
really good.
glasses,
Gold
girl.
accessories. So pretty. This is a really
once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. So they have to deal with that. They have to deal with all of that. Okay. Who do we have? Helio writes, I guess protests in the street won't happen unless it's your kids being trafficked or being sent to foreign conflicts or another nation. There are demons governing your lives. No telling what's next. Yep, absolutely true. Jane Doe writes, I'd love to know your opinion regarding BBC employees' letter about their pro-Israel content, more and more standing up against Israel propaganda. I actually was not aware of that there were BBC employees that wrote a letter. Oh yeah, here it is. 100 BBC insiders pen a letter accusing the UK broadcaster of being PR for Israel. Stars like Miriam Margolyes and Charles Dance sign. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was BBC, but I also saw that there was a documentary. I think it was BBC actually, because I spoke about it with my husband because I wanted to understand how BBC works since it's like government owned. And he was telling me, because there was some group that wanted to premiere a documentary about Gaza, and basically the BBC, they had to go to court. It got shut down because they said that it didn't represent both sides of the issue well, or like that's how they assess whether or not it can appear on BBC. And I do want to say to the creators of that content, if you want me to put up on my website and promote it so people can see it, I will do that. I certainly do not understand why they would prevent people from seeing what's happening in Gaza. And so, yeah, I was not aware they wrote this letter. I'm not surprised at all. Like I said, it is the majority of people have woken up to what's going on here. Gurvan Deep Singh writes, what about 1 minute of surveillance of the video missing? Yes, apparently, and I have to fact check this because I found out this right before we went live, but apparently the Epstein tape, which shows that no one went in, because we didn't see like Shawshank Redemption or the Count of Monte Cristo. Like there's no way there could be a tunnel to get out of a cell or anything. But anyways, the point is that this footage apparently is missing a minute. Again, they did say that some of it would be enhanced, but I don't know why you would enhance it by deleting a minute. So we'll have to look into that further and maybe report more tomorrow when more information comes out. And not something that I looked into particularly, but it has been said across social media today. So I promise I will commit to looking into that. Groovin with Christ writes, I love that. Groovin with Christ. God bless you always, to Jesus through Mary. Absolutely. Keep the prayers up, by the way, because they work.
She finished.
Black Scorpio writes, I am
I do
so very
believe she
disappointed in Kash
is.
Patel, Dan,
Okay.
and
I think
something
it's
is
just
not right there. What that something
comments.
is, I've never believed that.
Yeah, I don't think it's nothing else
Yeah.
about Epstein.
Right. Right.
Shout out to Candace Owens. Good
Yeah.
job. Keep up the good work. That's good journalism right there.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
All right, y'all. I guess that's our conclusion. Ain't no Epstein client list. So
get over it.
exactly.
Go look at all the other evidence that there is.
Yeah, go analyze the flight logs and go question the people on the flight logs if that's what you want to do.
Right.
Um, we know whose names is on there. Y'all should too.
Right. And look at the evidence list and the contact list. Look at all of the stuff that's available. I really don't believe that anybody went and looked at any of that stuff. They so focused on what they think they hiding. But all of the stuff that's visible to them, they're not even paying attention.
I definitely looked at the flight logs.
I did too. But I'm just saying, most of these people out here, they don't even know this stuff is available. They're like, he said he was gonna get this. They said they was gonna show the list. I'm like, what list are you talking about? Because
That's what I've been saying.
yeah,
They
what they
already showed the flight logs long time ago.
right, they
Any other
like
list, if they had it, they would have either been investigating those people,
right,
which would be one reason to not show the list,
right,
or they would have just classified it,
right,
which they could have did. But I
right,
don't think they did. It was just all evidence that they couldn't show because if there was somebody that they could indict, it would blow their case before they even get started to release all the evidence to the public.
yeah.
That's not supposed to be public. So there you have it, folks.
I sleep on.